Listen to this. Talker Research poll found an astounding number that Gen Z carries over $94,000 in personal debt. This is more than millennials, Gen X, and any other generation that has come before Gen Z. It's taking Gen Z longer to own a home. They're having less kids. They're being less social, getting into less relationships. And this was the generation that was told if you just follow the rules, you'll be successful, you'll be financially stable, and the richest generation that we have ever seen. So what happened? Why has none of this come true? And most importantly, who broke adulthood for Gen Z? To understand how we got here, we first need to understand the promise that was given to Gen Z. Gen Z was told a very specific story. Go to college, get a degree, find a good stable job, work hard, and your adulthood would be successful. You'd get a house, a good career, you'd be financially stable for the rest of your life. Everything that any person could want for adulthood would follow as long as you did these certain things. That's exactly what Gen Z did. They went to college in record numbers. Pew Research reports that Gen Z are less likely to drop out of high school and more likely to be enrolled in college than any other generation. Among 18 to 21-year-olds no longer in high school in 2018, 57% were enrolled in a 2-year or 4-year college. This compared with 52% among millennials in 2003 and 43% among members of Gen X in 1987. And after college, Gen Z sent out applications. Gen Z has applied to more jobs than any other generation before them. They did everything they were supposed to do. But what nobody told them is that the rules of adulthood had already changed before they even got into the game. The information their parents had given them on how to be successful was outdated. And so right now we're seeing something we've never seen before in American economic history. A generation that is more educated, more informed, and more connected than any other generation that has come before it. And yet are completely unable to achieve basic markers of adulthood that their parents took for granted. And the gap between what they were promised and what is actually available is what is breaking this generation. So let's start with what 50% of Gen Z say is on their mind day in and day out: debt. Personal debt. Because this is where the story really begins. The average Gen Z carries around $94,141 in personal debt, compared to millennials who average $59,181 and Gen X at $53,255. Gen Z has more average personal debt than any other generation in American history. And what's scary about this is this debt isn't being driven by bad spending habits. Most of the bill comes from advice that was given to them. Bloomberg reports that younger Americans are increasingly relying on debt just to maintain basic living standards: rent, groceries, transportation, and everyday expenses. Delinquencies on credit cards and auto loans have also started rising faster among younger borrowers. The price of college has also increased over 100% from when baby boomers were going to school. Boomers paid approximately $38,780 in today's dollars for a in-state 4-year tuition, while Gen Z is paying around $90,000. And the result of this is college transformed from a passageway to the middle class into a financial risk calculation. Even The Economist recently reported that many younger graduates are earning less relative to living costs than previous generations despite being more educated. And with colleges, especially private ones, charging high sticker prices for tuition and fees, which are rarely validated by external authorities, this problem is only getting worse. The rising debt at a younger age will trap individuals in a cycle of high interest payments, where the second wall hits: housing. Since 2000, inflation-adjusted home prices have risen over 65%. Meanwhile, the median household income has barely risen over the same time period. According to the National Association of Realtors, the median age of a first-time homebuyer recently hit a record high of 40 years of age. In cities like New York, LA, and Austin, the average home cost is more than 12 times the median income. That ratio used to be 3-to-1. So what used to be a relatively simple savings goal for Americans in the 1950s is now mathematically out of reach for most of Gen Z who don't don't have generational wealth backing them. The second option that Gen Z has is renting, but that has exploded in price as well. Inflation-adjusted rents have grown more than 20% above their 2000 level. So tell me, how do you save for a house when rent is consuming most of your income? If you can even get a decent entry-level job that can take care of your basic necessities, that your parents and the school system told you would be there if you got a college degree. This is causing a scenario where adulthood, real adulthood, with financial stability and assets has become a class-gated experience. If your family has wealth, you start out with wealth. If your family doesn't have wealth, you start from a hole that gets deeper and deeper every year. What's terrifying, our economists are starting to argue this may not be temporary. What's happening to Gen Z may just be the new norm for younger generations. Which means the question is no longer, will Gen Z catch up? The real question is, what happens if they can't? But here's the part I think most people miss. The debt, the housing, and the lack of jobs are all the symptoms. What we really need to understand is the diagnosis, and that diagnosis has a name. The word is Disillusionomics, and it describes exactly what is happening to Gen Z right now. Disillusionomics is the mass rejection by Gen Z of current financial markers that past generation used to mark success, like home ownership, marriage, kids, and career progression. Gen Z isn't just delaying these things, they are rethinking if these things actually matter in their lives. Because the math for them doesn't work, and honestly, that makes complete sense. This isn't just a housing problem or a debt problem, it's a structural problem. The economy that Gen Z inherited was built for a world that doesn't exist anymore. For decades, the social contract in America was simple. Companies invested in workers, workers built wealth, workers spent money, economy grows. That was the model. But over the last 40 years, that contract was quickly rewritten. Corporations shifted their primary mindset away from benefit to workers to benefit of their shareholders and prioritizing profit. Companies stopped investing in trading entry-level employees. They stopped building internal ladders for career growth. Instead, they started extracting profit and passing it upward. And so Gen Z now graduates into a world where 61% of entry-level jobs require 3 or more years of experience, where companies have stopped building talent and started buying it, where the career ladder that their parents climbed essentially has been removed from the picture. And the result of this is a generation that did everything right and still can't get their foot into the door. And then there's AI. And I have to talk about this because this is just going to make everything significantly worse. I've gone into depth about the job market and how AI is going to affect it. So if you want to know more about it, I'll leave the video up here. But basically, everybody is saying that AI is going to take over entry-level jobs. A New York Times surveyed over 30,000 executives and found that 63% of them, vice president level and above, said that AI will eventually take over the mundane tasks currently allocated to their entry-level employees. So this is not a future problem. It is happening right now. So the positions that are more likely to be taken first by AI are the repetitive ones. And the repetitive positions are the entry-level positions because you are learning a skill. Goldman Sachs estimated that AI could eventually impact hundreds of millions of jobs globally, especially repetitive, administrative, and analytical work. And unfortunately for Gen Z, those are often the exact positions younger workers use to enter industries in the first place. Now, here's where I want to be real with you. I want to talk about what Gen Z can actually do inside this broken system. Because the obvious question has become, if the old system isn't working and this roadmap to adulthood is outdated, what is Gen Z actually supposed to do now? Number 1. Investing. There are many options you have. You can do a Roth IRA, you can do a 401k, you can do individual investing, but just putting $50 into an investing account every week is huge, especially if that compounds over 40 years. This is the single most reliable system where anybody can build wealth if they aren't already born into it. Okay, but what should you invest in? The total stock market, the S&P 500. Easy, simple, put $50 into it. Over 40 years from now, you'll probably have $2 to $3 million for your retirement. You'll be good to go. You'll be able to retire without any type of outside money coming in. And the time advantage that you have is the only advantage that the wealthy cannot take away from you. Number 2, opening a high yield savings account. I'm not just talking about your savings account from Bank of America. I'm talking about a high yield savings account. I personally use Ally. Ally is pretty good. They're not the highest, but they do have a pretty high yield savings account. Another good one is SoFi. SoFi has a pretty good high yield. Chime has a pretty good high yield. American Express has a pretty good high yield. Chase Bank has a pretty good high yield. Anything above 3% right now, I would consider a high yield savings account. This is to build an emergency fund. Look, life happens. Going into adulthood, things are going to happen. You need to have money stowed away so that when these things happen, you don't have to dip into your investing account. You don't have to take out credit cards. You have money specifically for these unreliable events that are going to take place in your life. Number 3, and maybe the most important, is protecting your gap. And what I mean by that is lifestyle inflation. What usually happens is when you start to make more money, your expenses start to become more expensive. Stop that. You want to get to a point where the amount that you're spending on your everyday needs, food, housing, transportation, that good stuff, is starting to slowly close because you're making more money. And the closer you can keep this gap between your expenses and your income, the better off that you're going to be. What usually happens is you're here and then you start to make more money and then you spend more money and then you start to make more money and then you spend more money and then you spend a little bit more money. You make a little bit more money and you spend even more money. And your lifestyle gap stays the same or increases, so you're not really able to invest or save. But when you can shrink that lifestyle gap or keep it consistent, you're able to maintain a healthy lifestyle. And number 4 is skill stacking. So in a job market where we really aren't seeing any jobs open, a lot of ghost jobs and entry-level jobs are requiring 3+ years of experience, having the skills for these jobs already is very important. But you can't just get these from degrees. You have to get certifications. You have to go outside of degrees to get the experience these positions need. So certifications, online courses, and a portfolio of real work experience are very important in today's economy and job market, especially for Gen Z. This is how you become a low-risk hire in a market where companies are completely obsessed with avoiding risk at the entry level. The system is broken, but that doesn't mean there's nothing that you can do inside of this broken system. And honestly, creating this video and doing the research and being an early Gen Z myself, it has opened up my eyes to what Gen Z is feeling, but really can't put into words. You know, I kind of don't like the notation that Gen Z is lazy. Gen Z isn't lazy. Gen Z has put in more work to get into the market than any other generation, but the market just isn't built for them anymore. So they feel hopeless. They feel like none of their effort is paying off. So if it's not paying off, why would you even try? That is what Gen Z is feeling right now. Why would you even try to buy a home, try to get into a relationship, be social, get a degree, build a career, when it's nearly impossible to do those things because of the environment that was created for you? And the only way through that is to understand what is actually happening and to make intentional decisions based off of that scenario. Because if you are Gen Z and you are watching this video, you are more informed than any generation that has come before you. And that is your advantage. And so if you enjoyed this video and you are Gen Z, I encourage you to share this with another Gen Zer. Or if you aren't Gen Z, I encourage you to share this with Gen Z. Because the more people who actually understand what's going on, the better equipped they will be to navigate inside this broken system. Leave a like, leave a comment, maybe a subscription, and I'll see you in the next one.